The message came not through diplomatic back channels, not through the State Department, not through any of the conventional mechanisms by which great powers communicate their intentions to each other. It came directly, publicly, and in the bluntest language any sitting American president has directed at a foreign government in decades. Donald Trump, speaking from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office in a brief address that lasted less than 4 minutes, looked directly into the camera and delivered an ultimatum that has since been played on repeat on every news channel on Earth. Iran has 24 hours, he said. After that, everything changes. That's it. That's the message. 3 words. Everything changes. Doing an enormous amount of work. Deliberately vague on specifics. Impossible to misunderstand in its general intent. The kind of statement that Trump has used throughout his career to maximum effect. Say enough to be unmistakably threatening. Say little enough that you retain maximum flexibility. Tehran received the message. The Supreme Leader's office has not responded publicly. The IRGC has gone to elevated alert. Iranian state media is a mixture of defiant rhetoric and, underneath the surface, something that reads more like calculation than confidence. And the whole world is now watching a 24-hour clock tick toward a moment that nobody can fully predict. The text of Trump's statement is short enough that we can examine it carefully, because every word matters. He said Iran had one final opportunity to stand down completely. The word completely is important. Trump is not offering a partial de-escalation, a ceasefire here, a pause there. He's demanding full, unambiguous Iranian withdrawal from whatever military activities have prompted this moment. That's a maximalist demand, and it's designed to be. He said America had never been stronger, never been more ready, standard Trump confidence assertion, but it also serves a specific purpose. It signals to Iran that no amount of Iranian bravado or threat-making will change the American assessment of relative military strength. He said the people of Iran deserve better than what they have. A pointed attempt to separate the Iranian population from the Iranian government, a standard element of American political communication strategy in confrontations with adversarial governments. It also signals that the American quarrel is with the IRGC and the Supreme Leader, not with the Iranian people. And then, after 24 hours, everything changes. Not we will conduct strikes, not we will impose sanctions, not we will work with allies. Everything. The deliberate maximalism of everything changes is calculated. It gives Trump room to do anything or nothing, depending on how Iran responds, without having committed to a specific action that he would then have to execute or be seen as backing down on. One thing experienced Trump watchers note: when Trump gives a specific time limit, he usually means it. This is not a statement to be dismissed as rhetoric. Iran's leadership is now facing the most consequential decision in the history of the Islamic Republic. The options are stark, and none of them are good. The first option is to comply, stand down, pull back, accept the American ultimatum, and find language to describe this as a sovereign Iranian decision rather than a capitulation. This is the option that would avoid immediate military escalation. It is also the option that would most severely damage the internal legitimacy of the Islamic Republic. 45 years of revolutionary ideology, decades of anti-American rhetoric, years of telling the Iranian people and the Muslim world that the Islamic Republic stands firm against American pressure. All of it would be undermined by publicly backing down when the pressure reaches its maximum. The hardliners within the IRGC and the broader security establishment would view such a response as a betrayal. It could destabilize the regime from within. The second option is to refuse and prepare for military confrontation. Tell America, publicly or through intermediaries, that Iran will not be dictated to, activate all military assets, put the Strait of Hormuz mines in ready position, notify proxy forces across the region to prepare for action, and brace for the American strike. This option preserves ideological legitimacy, but accepts that a massive military confrontation is now inevitable. The third option is partial compliance with defiant framing. Make some concessions while publicly framing this as a sovereign Iranian decision based on Iranian interests, not a response to American ultimatum. This is the diplomatically sophisticated option. It gives Trump something to claim as a win while preserving enough Iranian dignity that the regime can survive domestically. The fourth option is to delay and escalate simultaneously. Neither comply nor refuse, but instead launch a provocative action in the next few hours that changes the situation dramatically enough that the 24-hour deadline becomes less relevant. Each of these options has proponents within the Iranian political system. The supreme leader's own inclination, based on 40 years of political behavior, is toward the kind of defiance that preserves ideological consistency. Whatever Iran decides, the American military posture that now confronts Tehran is formidable. Multiple carrier strike groups are in or near the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. Each carrier can put up to 70 aircraft into the air simultaneously. The combined air wing of 2 or 3 carrier groups represents an air power concentration that rivals many countries' entire air forces. B-52 Stratofortress bombers have been repositioned to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, which puts Iran within striking range. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, capable of carrying the massive ordnance penetrator, the bunker buster bomb specifically designed to destroy hardened underground facilities like Iran's nuclear sites, are at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, but can be deployed within hours. F-35s and F-22s are forward deployed at bases in the Gulf. Significant special operations forces are in the region, pre-positioned for potential direct action missions. And there is one dimension of American military power that is almost entirely invisible, but potentially decisive: American Cyber Command. The organization that executed the Stuxnet attack on Iranian nuclear facilities over a decade ago has had years to develop deeper capabilities against Iranian networks. A major cyber attack launched simultaneously with any kinetic strikes could degrade Iran's command and control, air defense coordination, and communications in ways that multiply the effectiveness of physical strikes dramatically. The American military is not improvising. The contingency plans have been drawn up, updated, and rehearsed. The targeting packages exist. The question was never whether America could strike Iran. The question has always been what the second and third order consequences would be. Behind the scenes, the 24-hour countdown has triggered a frenzy of diplomatic activity that most of the public can't see, but which may ultimately matter more than anything happening militarily. Oman has historically served as the primary back-channel between America and Iran. Omani diplomats have been involved in virtually every significant negotiation between the two countries for decades, going back to the 1981 hostage crisis. Right now, according to multiple regional sources, Oman is actively engaged. The question is whether there's enough trust, enough time, and enough flexibility on both sides to turn quiet Omani conversations into something concrete within the 24-hour window. Qatar has its own relationships with Iran and with American officials. Qatar hosts a major American military base, Al Udeid, which gives it both a direct stake in the outcome and leverage with both parties. Qatari leadership has been unusually visible in international diplomacy in the past 72 hours. Pakistan has long-standing relationships with both the United States and Iran, and periodically plays a quiet diplomatic role in communications between the two. Islamabad has strong incentives to see this de-escalate. France, Germany, and the UK are all reaching out to both Washington and Tehran. Emmanuel Macron has spoken with both Trump and, through intermediaries, with Iranian foreign ministry officials. The Europeans can't stop a military action if Trump decides to launch one, but they can facilitate communications that give Iran's pragmatic faction ammunition to argue internally for a diplomatic off-ramp. History suggests that last-minute diplomatic breakthroughs are rare but not impossible. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 was resolved through exactly this kind of last-minute back-channel communication. But it required leadership on both sides willing to find a face-saving exit. Whether that leadership exists in both Washington and Tehran right now is the central question. Understanding Trump's psychology is essential to understanding what's going to happen in the next 24 hours. Trump values unpredictability as a strategic asset. He has said explicitly, multiple times, that being unpredictable makes you stronger in negotiation and confrontation. This means the 24-hour ultimatum should be taken seriously as a statement of intent. But it also means Trump reserves the right to change his assessment based on new information, new offers, or his own evolving intuition about what's working. Trump values a win. He wants to be able to claim a decisive victory. If Iran gives him something, anything, that he can credibly frame as a victory, his incentive to launch military strikes decreases substantially. He doesn't need Iran to capitulate completely. He needs something he can hold up and say, "I was tough, it worked, America won." That's important to understand because it means the 24-hour ultimatum is not necessarily as binary as it sounds. It's also a negotiating position. Trump is sensitive to American casualties. One of the consistent themes of his political career has been skepticism about American military commitments that produce casualties without clear victories. If the intelligence is showing him that the planned military strikes against Iran would likely produce American military fatalities from Iranian counterstrikes, that calculation weighs on him. He wants strength without cost. Trump also responds to peer pressure from people he respects. Who in his inner circle is arguing for military action, and who is arguing for a deal? The makeup of that group, and their access to Trump in the next few hours, may matter as much as anything happening in Tehran. The 24-hour clock is making everyone in the region nervous, but for different reasons. Israel is watching with a mixture of hope and anxiety. Hope because a decisive American military action against Iran could achieve what Israel has wanted for years: degradation of Iranian military capabilities, potential disruption of the nuclear program, and demonstration that the axis of resistance is not invincible. Anxiety, because if the confrontation produces a large-scale Iranian missile barrage, Israel will be on the receiving end of it, regardless of who launches the initial American strikes. Saudi Arabia is also watching carefully. The Saudis have their own complex relationship with Iran, their rivals, their enemies in many respects, and they've been working to normalize relations in a Chinese-brokered process that began 2 years ago. A full American-Iranian military confrontation could destroy that fragile normalization entirely. Saudi Arabia is quietly communicating to Washington that it would prefer a diplomatic resolution that nevertheless results in significant constraints on Iranian military capability. Iraq is in one of the most difficult positions in the region. Iraq has a significant American military presence. Iraq also has extensive political, religious, and economic ties with Iran. Iraqi political parties with ties to Tehran are calling for American forces to leave. A full American-Iranian war would turn Iraq into a battlefield, whether it wants to be or not. Turkey is attempting to position itself as a potential mediator, calling for all parties to show restraint, diplomatic language that translates roughly as, "Please don't make this our problem." Turkey's economy is deeply integrated with global energy markets, and an oil price spike of the current magnitude is already causing significant economic stress in Ankara. As the clock runs down, here is what to watch: the signals that will tell you whether this is heading toward military action or toward some kind of diplomatic resolution. Watch Iranian state media. If it shifts from maximalist rhetoric toward language about sovereignty and diplomatic channels being open, without being explicitly defiant, that's a signal the pragmatists are gaining ground internally and that some kind of accommodation may be forming. Watch the Omani foreign minister. If he boards a plane, or if there's any Omani diplomatic movement that suggests a shuttling between capitals, it's a strong signal that the back channel is producing something. Watch American military movements. Additional repositioning of assets would suggest the military action track is being actively pursued. No significant additional movement might suggest military planners are waiting to see how the diplomatic track develops. Watch Trump's public statements, because if his tone shifts from threats toward references to great deals and opportunities, it may be a signal that something is developing diplomatically that he's preparing to frame as a victory. Watch oil prices in real time, because oil traders are trying to predict whether military action happens. A price spike would suggest markets are increasing their assessment of strike probability. A price decline would suggest traders are seeing signals of de-escalation. And watch what happens exactly at the 24-hour mark, because what happens in the 30 to 60 minutes around the deadline will be the clearest signal of all. Let's be direct about the range of scenarios, from best to worst. The best case is that Iran communicates privately, through intermediaries, a set of concrete steps that Trump can credibly claim as a capitulation. Trump announces that Iran blinked, claims total victory, and the immediate military confrontation is averted. The underlying tensions remain, but the acute crisis passes. The moderate case is that Iran makes a partial gesture. Not everything Trump demanded, but enough that Trump can point to it and say the ultimatum worked. A limited American military strike is launched against specific IRGC targets, significant enough to demonstrate seriousness, but limited enough that Iran can absorb it without being forced to launch a massive retaliatory response. Both sides de-escalate toward a new tense status quo. The bad case is that Iran refuses completely. America launches a large-scale strike on Iranian military infrastructure, nuclear facilities, and IRGC command nodes. Iran launches a massive missile barrage against Israel and American forces in the region. The conflict expands rapidly. Regional allies are drawn in. Oil reaches $200 per barrel. Global recession follows. And the worst case is everything in the bad case plus one of the escalatory wildcards. China imposing economic countermeasures against America. A major Iranian cyber attack against American financial infrastructure. An accidental strike on a Russian asset that triggers a broader confrontation. Or an Iranian nuclear breakout attempt that forces additional preemptive military action. This is the catastrophic scenario. Lower probability than the others, but not zero. 24 hours. One of the most consequential countdowns in modern history. The specific outcome we'll see depends on decisions being made right now in Tehran, in Washington, in Moscow and Beijing, in Riyadh and Jerusalem and Ankara, and in 100 diplomatic offices and military command posts that the public will never hear about. The people making those decisions are human beings under extraordinary pressure, with incomplete information, personal ambitions and fears, domestic political constraints, and ideological commitments that sometimes make rational calculation difficult. We've been in moments like this before. Sometimes they've resolved through 11th-hour diplomacy that seemed impossible right until the moment it succeeded. Sometimes they've escalated into conflicts that everyone later said could have been avoided, that seemed inevitable in retrospect, but were actually the product of specific decisions that could have gone differently. The 24-hour clock is ticking. The outcome is genuinely uncertain, and whatever happens, it will matter. To people in Iran, to people in Israel, to people in the broader Middle East, and to people far away from the region whose lives will be affected by what happens to oil prices, global security, and the international order in the hours ahead. We'll be here, watching, analyzing, and bringing you the most accurate picture we can of what's happening and what it means. Because in moments like this, the difference between good information and bad information is not a small thing. It's everything.